There's not much to say, guys. If you have the chance to play Helldivers 2, you absolutely should take that chance. Helldivers 2 is such an amazing surprise. This game had essentially no PR and no advertisement before its release. Helldivers 1, by comparison, was a relatively small game with a small player count. But Helldivers 2 release has completely changed the landscape and the future for this dev team, Arrowhead Studios. Helldivers 2 is essentially Starship Troopers the video game, a 4-player co-op third-person shooter, and it does everything right here. Set in the future, where Earth has been consolidated into Super Earth, you join the Helldivers, an elite orbital drop troopers regiment set to fight against the Terminids, or the bugs as many call them, and the automatons, or the robots.
Super Earth, our home. Prosperity. Liberty.
Hi there.
Democracy.
What I love most about Helldivers is the satirical nature of the lore and the conflict itself. Like Starship Troopers, Helldivers makes fun of themselves constantly.
But freedom doesn't come free.
No! Sweet liberty! No!
Look familiar? Scenes like these are happening all over the galaxy right now. You could be next. That is, unless you make the most important decision of your life. Prove to yourself that you have the strength and the courage to be free.
Join the Helldivers.
It's so nice to see a game and a studio not take itself so seriously. When you do that, you open yourself up for mockery, but in this case, it has worked out perfectly for Arrowhead Studios. As a Helldiver, you are sent to one of the two current fronts, the Terminids and the automatons. On the two fronts, you will have different missions with different objectives to complete with a number of secondary and side objectives. All of this under a timer, and the faster you complete your missions, the greater reward you'll get at the end. When you complete your mission, you then have to extract back to your destroyer.
Pelican 1 preparing to depart. Shuttle launch in 20 seconds. Extraction complete. Pelican 1 beginning ascent.
Today you've carved another foot in a long climb to liberty.
This is a really simple game loop, to be honest, but they do a few things to add a lot of variety to this. One is the enemy type. Obviously you have the Terminids and you have the automatons, but you have many different types of enemies within those two classes. You also have a good variety of weapons and stratagrams. Now, the weapons, there aren't that many weapons, to be honest, about 20 between primary and secondary. But like a lot of games, shooter games, you're going to find a few guns that you really like, and that'll keep you going. I also have to say that the gunplay is excellent. The guns are very responsive, they have real weight and real power behind them. No guns feel like they're shooting BBs. They actually have real punch to them. Stratagrams are the other variable you can have during your missions. They're essentially aids you can call down from your destroyer in high orbit. These can include things like heavy weapons, sentry turrets, and airstrikes. There are 30 plus stratagrams you can unlock once you reach max level, and depending on what your loadout is, these can change how you play each mission, adding a lot of variety. So just as an example, you can use up to 4 stratagrams per mission. One mission you can choose to bring down 4 turrets, or 4 heavy weapons, or 4 airstrikes, or a mixture of all. This just adds a lot of variety and replayability to all the missions.
And fear the shadow of neither death nor tyranny.
Support weapon inbound.
Calling down a sentry.
Requesting tac pack. Support weapon inbound.
Requesting sentry.
So as you unlock more Stratagrams and more missions, you will have the ability to play on the higher difficulty levels. Now, Helldivers has a whopping 9 difficulty settings, from trivial at 1 to Helldive at 9. One thing you're going to learn about this game very quickly is you're going to die quite a lot, but I think that's honestly part of the fun, because you get into really interesting and exciting scenarios. Like, for instance, many times you have a squad of 4 and 3 will be dead, 1 alive, being chased by a horde, and he has to call down the reinforcements, but he's being chased, and so it is an all-for-nothing play. Like I said, the gunplay is amazing, but it's the wild, crazy moments like this that you will remember and will have you coming back for more.
That's called democracy. Calling in orbital strike.
Now, the graphics and the sound design is really great in this game. I was very surprised by how great it was. If you look at Helldivers 1, it's very, it has not aged well, but this game looks absolutely fantastic on PC and even on PlayStation right now, and rumored to come to Xbox maybe later, but it looks amazing. The sound design is also really great, and they've added a few new worlds already that look absolutely stunning. Everything coming together, the atmosphere is really perfect, especially when you're fighting like on night worlds and there's like lots of mist and explosions in the background, and it just, the atmosphere, they have nailed the atmosphere in this game completely.
All the galaxy looks to you for salvation. Let nothing stand in the way of liberty.
Now, like a lot of games, it's obviously better with friends. If you can, play with 4 people, because communication is really key. Working together is really key. Again, the whole point of the game is to complete the objectives as quickly as possible and then extract. If you have a team that's working together, communicating, that is obviously going to happen much better. Now, if you can't get people to play with you, that's also fine. You have a function where you can join people's SOS beacon. So an SOS beacon is essentially if you're playing a game and you need help, throw an SOS beacon and people are searching. It's basically the quick search to find other people in that difficulty rating. So you can find people who are playing the game. That obviously varies. Some people are bad, some people grief, but for the most part, that works very well. If you don't have people to play with, it's not the end of the world. People work together, people communicate, even if they're not friends, just to get the mission done. Now, I have to say this game has not been perfect since its launch, as I'll get to a little bit later. A lot of problems with people getting online. There's server queues, not enough room, but I think this is the best reason. If you're going to have a reason for why people can't get online, it's because the game is far more successful than you ever thought it would be. That is the best reason to have these issues. So obviously didn't expect so many people to be playing, and because of that, there's just not enough server room, and then people would stay online. It wasn't an AFK timer, so people would stay online for like all day, so they didn't have to sit in the queue. So a lot of the times you would spend, up to hours waiting to get into the queue. Now, this was a problem during this review. I would have to wait a long time sometimes to get into the game. Now, they have fixed it. I think yesterday they added an AFK timer. They also increased the amount of server capacity. So those problems have been fixed, but connectivity issues, not being able to search, to do a quick search to find games, for me, it still tells me that there's 0 Helldivers actually playing the game, so there's no stats. So connectivity issues, server capacity, long queue times, these are not great things. Now, for the most part, they've been fixed, but like I said, I have to kind of add this to the review score at the end because these were problems during my experience. Now, most of them are fixed, but again, it happens. It's for the best reason possible, though. It's for the best reason. They are literally suffering from success. Now, the game can get slightly stale, especially if you're playing on the same difficulty and can't quite make that jump. You're playing essentially the same enemies. over and over again on kind of like the same missions. But I think the point is to push yourself, try to get to higher level tiers of difficulty, because when you do that, you'll encounter different enemies that have different kind of AI. The AI is also great in this game. The Terminids are mostly melee, so that's one type of enemy that they'll mostly just charge at you, but in different ways. Some enemies will charge directly at you, some will go around you and try to flank you, and then you have the automatons, which are mostly range, but some melee. So you have a good variety of enemies between both. One's more melee dominant, one's more range dominant, so depending on which front, you're actually going to really experience kind of different gameplay a bit, but the enemy variety is just great in there. And of course, once you move up the difficulty tier, you're going to encounter new enemies that you haven't faced before, so you have to kind of figure out how to take these guys out, and as you keep going higher and higher, it's going to be more challenging, of course, and then figure out the new enemies and how to defeat them. So it's essentially like a new challenge every tier you go up. So I can understand if you're playing on the same tier over and over again because you can't make that push, that it could get repetitive, but I think the point is to push yourself and to fight new enemies and have basically a new experience on each difficulty tier. The reason I believe this game is so successful, besides the reasons I already mentioned, is because it's a simple design that they just excelled great at. So many games these days are designed for esports or very competitive multiplayer, etc. But Helldivers is just a simple co-op game where everyone's on the same side, defending Super Earth and democracy from the endless hordes of Terminids and automatons.
Become a hero. Become a legend.
The CEO of Arrowhead himself has stated that there will not be multiplayer added, which is honestly, in my opinion, really great. He cited that adding multiplayer would only create a more toxic atmosphere, which is true, and it's better when everyone is on the same side. He also stated that there will not be pay-to-win features. I mean, this guy is incredibly base. He's making the right decisions. He's been hit with massive success with this game for doing all the right things, and just really great base decisions that make me have hope for the studio in the future. It's very interesting to have this happen, though, because in this modern age of gaming, most games, if not, nearly all, are trying to get you to pay as much money as possible, are very competitive. Some games are designed, like, specifically just to be esports, like I said. So it's nice to have really what is a classic, simple co-op shooter. Helldivers has reached the insane peaks of 400,000 plus concurrent players. That's a feat that only a handful of games have ever reached. It's amazing that such a small, insignificant, unknown studio has managed to accomplish this, considering that most AAA studios and their games never reach this feat. And it's honestly kind of embarrassing. So my final rating for Helldivers 2 is an 8.5 out of 10. So the reason it doesn't get, a perfect 10 or a 9 or I'd say, it's just the slight repetitiveness if you can't make that push. Most of it has to do with the connectivity issues of server capacity, waiting to queue. Now most of those problems are gone, thankfully, but I had to account for that, obviously. So that is the main reason why it's not higher than that. But I think 8.5 is a fantastic score. This game is incredibly successful. It's not a perfect game by any metric, but I think for the $40 price it has incredible value. Most of the time I go by $1 for 1 hour. You will play well more than 40 hours for your $40 here. So I think 8.5 is still a fantastic score, and it really, in a couple weeks when they iron out all the connectivity issues and server capacity, it will actually be higher, but of course I have to count the score as it is right now. So I think 8.5 is a very good score for this game. Uber successful. I'm not taking anything away from this game. It'll be high when they fix all these issues. I hope Helldivers 2 and its shocking success shows the gaming world that not every game has to be a cash grab. Not every game has to bend to popular trends like Battle Royale or esports. Sometimes you can just make a wacky game that's simple and just works well. Sometimes, yes, doing less is actually more in this case. Hope to see you guys on the front lines soon. But please, for the love of all democracy and Super Earth, please help us on the automaton front. We're getting our asses kicked for democracy.